That's a good question, right? I was thinking about this. And even this, how do I know if I want to get well? So here's 5 quick things. Number 1, when they're eager to receive truth and wisdom. Eager is the key word there. Not just kind of like, whatever, this better be entertaining, but like leaning in going, okay, I need that. This is important. This is serious. This is life. This is bigger than March Madness. This is whatever it is. Like they're eager. Secondly, because some of you are checking scores right now. Secondly, when they own their own failures. Like, right? Isn't that true? As long as we say, oh, I haven't done anything, and blaming and excusing and whatever, and I'm just Italian and whatever, all the things. I don't know why I said that. But anyway, all the things, like at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, but we do things that are not great, and we got to own them. We got to apologize. Third, when they're willing or you're willing to lose something that's important or valuable to you for something else that's better. Because life is about making exchanges, is it not? You exchange one maybe good thing or okay thing for something better. This is the life God calls us to. It's not we just add something to our life. We have to make an exchange. Jesus says you die to yourself. Why? So that you might gain true life. And this is the principle. How do you know you want something? When you're willing to let something important to you go. Right? Some people, they shop too much, they golf too much, they whatever, we all have probably something in our lives, it's just too much, and it's not good for our relationships, it's not good for our walk with God. It's just too much. It's not that it's bad, it's just too much, right? And so are we willing to loosen the grip a little bit? Fourth is when they welcome accountability and help. I could use some help. That's different than, I got this, it's like, no, for your whole life you haven't had this, Like maybe we do need some accountability. And then fifth is when we begin to see tangible progress. Like just growth, not perfection, just step by step by step. See, there are many ways, there are many how-tos, many ways to change, but the start of real change is always going to be this. Do you want to? Do you want to get well? Do you want to get healthier? Do you want to develop the necessary skills so you can get a better job? Do you want your marriage to improve? Do you want to break an unhealthy addiction? Do you want to move past the past? Do you want to grow? Do you want to change? Do you want to be transformed by God? Do you want to see God renew and revitalize your life and your heart and your relationships and all these things? It's like, yes, really? And so he asked him for him. Do you want to? And the guy says this, sir, the invalid says, meaning the disabled person says, I have no one to help me. So does he answer yes or no? No. He immediately goes into blaming. He immediately goes into excusing. If nobody helps me, how am I going to get down into the magical waters that stir up? I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred while I'm trying to get in. Someone else goes in ahead of me. You know what? What he's saying is, Jesus, I just want you to feel sorry for me. Can't we be like that sometimes if we're honest? I would love it if the world just threw me a pity party. And we wait and wait and wait for that day to happen. It will never happen because people have their own problems. And it's not that they won't care in a moment, pray for you, encourage you, hug you, love you. But friends, life is short. I've seen people live with bad stuff for the rest of their lives. They never change. And then they die. And it's sad. And so it starts with ownership, not shifting the blame and excusing. Do you want to get well? Well, nobody can help. Jesus is like, I didn't ask you that. I didn't ask you about your circumstance. In fact, I know your circumstances, See, he thinks he needs a little assistance. Nobody's here to help me. Jesus, maybe you can. He doesn't even know his name is Jesus at this point, but maybe you can help me down in the pool when they stir. You're going to hang out with me until those waters start stirring someday. Maybe it's 2 months from now, whatever. He thinks he needs a hand, a little nudge, a little, that's what we think. Like we just need a little boost from God to get what we really need. The man didn't need magical waters. The man didn't need quicker reflexes. The man didn't need a little help from Jesus. The man needed Jesus to be his everything. Do you know that song, kind of an older one, but Draw Me Close to You? Anybody remember that one? And the chorus in it, if you're familiar with it, but it says, "You're all I want. The Lord is my shepherd." What's the next line? "I shall not want." You're all that I want, as the song says. You're all that I've ever needed, that I've ever really needed. I asked you early in the message, what do you want most? And it's easy to go to, believe me, health stuff, relationship stuff, all the things. But you know what, as Christians, what we should most want is just the presence and the power and the love of Christ in us. And Jesus knows that that's what this guy needs. He says, verse 8, then Jesus said to him, all right, get up, pick up your mat, and get walking. And once the man was cured, and he picked up his mat and walked. Jesus doesn't need to get him to the water. Jesus is the living water. Jesus is all that he needs, right? And so sometimes as people change, sometimes it's a process, and sometimes it's in an instant. And I love what Jesus says here. Basically, he's like, all right, dude, I'm using my word, but all right, dude, get up, get going. That's what he says. It's like, get up. It's almost a command. Just get up, get going. Get up, In other words, he's saying this. Those 38 years of suffering, it's time to leave that life behind. And I've noticed something. Some of us are good at looking back at life. I met with somebody this morning after the service, and she's got regrets, and these are real things. I'm not saying that we're going to remember these things, but I'm also saying this. The Lord says, fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of your faith. Get rid of everything that slows you down, that hinders you. Chase after God. Leave the past in the where? In the past. You've been forgiven. Have you taken it to the Lord? Yes. Have you been forgiven by Jesus? Yes. Leave the past in the past. Can you learn from the past? Absolutely. So in that regard, yes, let's learn from our mistakes. But let's leave our mistakes in the past and move forward. This is actually the command of God. Some of us, he's telling us this morning, get up and walk. Get up and get going. I remember because, over the years, Joy and I have owned a host of older cars, which are always exciting. And I remember one time I was adjusting the rearview mirror, and it just came off in my hand. And I thought, that's when you know you have a quality car, But I thought, well, no looking back anymore, apparently. Maybe some accidents are in my future. But anyway, so there you go. Leave the past. And then it says this day, the day on which this all took place was a Sabbath, all right? The seventh day of rest and stuff like that. And this was really annoying to the Jewish leaders. It says this day was the Sabbath. Verse 10, and so the Jewish leaders said to the man who had been healed, it's the Sabbath. The law forbids you to carry out your mat. Now, the law is not the biblical law. It's not the Mosaic law. It's not the Old Testament law. It's laws that Jewish religious leaders had created, had added. And they were like, one of our laws was on the Sabbath, you can't carry anything. Look at you carrying that mat that weighs 6 ounces or whatever. It's probably just this really thin mat. And then you also weren't supposed to heal anybody on the Sabbath unless they were near death, which is wild. Anyway, they should have been amazed at Jesus. Instead, they're just like nitpicking. We all know people like that. All right, so verse 11, but he replied, the man who made me well said to me, pick up your mat and walk. Does he protect Jesus at this point? See, he, I think, knows that the religious leaders are after Jesus here. Like, who told you to do this? Kind of thing. And the guy's like, Jesus, or he doesn't know his name, but he's like, this guy did it. Like, He's blaming again. Verse 12. So they asked him, who is this fellow? This sounds like pip, pip, cheerio. Anyway, who told you to pick it up and walk? And the man who was healed, he had no idea who it was, for Jesus had, like a ninja, slipped away into the crowd, and that was there. Verse 4, the ninja is not in the scriptures. Verse 14, later Jesus found this guy at the temple, right nearby, and said to him, see, you are well again. But he's almost saying, but you're not truly well. So he says this, stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you. Stop sinning. This is what Jesus says a number of times, but stop sinning, something worse. What would be worse than being an invalid for 38 years in the first century? Here's what's worse. Dying in our sin and facing the judgment of God. And guess what? Jesus knows that. Did you notice Jesus doesn't show up to this crowd and wave his finger or say some words and everybody is healed? Jesus knows what we most need. And what we all most need is to be right with him. We most need his righteousness, his forgiveness, his grace and mercy, the new life, the victorious life that comes from him. Verse 15, the man went away, and I love this, told the Jewish leaders that it was Jesus who made him well. He knew that they were out not to praise Jesus, but they wanted to punish him. And interestingly enough, this is the beginning of Jesus' suffering. This moment right here is the beginning of Jesus' persecution. You see, Jesus healed the man's suffering, and the man started Jesus' suffering. You know what this is called? Ministry. This is called trying to love people, trying to encourage, and then they stab us in the back, or they gossip about us, or they don't, whatever. And none of us are perfect, but Jesus is perfect. Jesus ended this man's suffering. He